And it affects the realtors, it affects every single person because realtors are mom and pop. They got mom and pop businesses. They rely on this. Yeah, they may be commission driven, but at the tail end of the day, they're the exact same thing as the average mom and dad homeowner. And therein lies the problem. Documents that are irrefutably ignored. I've read every single one of these, including USPAP. USPAP's a 384-page document. Nothing wrong with USPAP. Its biggest problem is nobody's ever read it. So when you start stacking all this information, what you really have is an illusion of legitimacy. Your school districts are bankrupt. It was clearly stated multiple times, not just by me. That's what happened last week. So you're being asked to pay for taxes for the mistakes and the sins of the people of the past who have committed this fraud. And when I say this is fraud, this has got multiple problems, state and federal levels. It turns into RICO at the tail end of the day, because under RICO, when somebody creates a debt and holds a gun to your head and says, pay my debt or I'm going to shoot you, that's the definition of RICO. It is the exact same thing as I created a debt, you're the property owner, pay the taxes, and if you don't, I will take the house from you. Now, here's how perverse it gets. Never mind the school districts. Watch this one. Walk it through. So if you've got somebody that says, I'm going to pay these taxes or I'm going to lose my house. Okay, I can't pay it. I don't have the money. I lose the house. What just happened at the tax district level? So the tax bill that they would have received is maybe $3,500, right? They take the house and they auction the house. And when they take the house, they auction the house. What just happened? Well, the tax receipt went from maybe $3,500, depending on the value of the home, whatever it is. And let's say the district now has an extra $100,000 in their pocket because they auctioned the house. They don't give a damn what it sold for because the next person who comes in is going to end up paying the taxes. But in the meantime, they got a boost of $100,000 to the coffers. You see the problem? Straight up RICO. It conforms to all 4 criteria under RICO. So when people want to bury their head, you can do whatever you want, but this is coming to a neighborhood near you momentarily. It's already there.
So I know that you said that bonds are levered and against the assets. And do you mind just walking the general public through how does the bond and the comptroller, how does that piece work, and what's the liability look like for me and you as a homeowner?
Okay, so let's back up on that for a second. Let's talk about the state comptroller and the property valuation study. Well, the state comptroller adds another layer of fraud to this. This does go to the state comptroller. I've mentioned his name multiple times. It's Glenn Hagar. I don't know the man, don't really care, but I'm telling you that there are real big problems here because the state comptroller turns around and he goes to the chief appraisers of every district and says, I need more money. Well, okay, here's the problem. State comptroller-in-law has no authority whatsoever to set property values. State comptroller-in-law has no authority whatsoever to go to a CAD on a predetermined budget created under the property valuation study, which is taking money from one school district to pay another school district. It sounds good in theory. It looks good on paper. The problem is the state comptroller has no authority in law to set a property value. In essence, he is setting the property value. That's a whole other layer of fraud over and above what the CADs are doing. That's 2 layers of fraud right there. Now, to your other point on the bonds, well, here's a real interesting layer of fraud. So who are the bondholders? Pensions. Who are the pensioners? Mom and pop. So not only are mom and pop going to get screwed over on their house, because that's happening in reality in real time, but when those bonds default, then mom and pop are going to get smacked again. They're going to lose their pensions. So you've got multiple layers of fraud happening here. That's 3 layers of fraud, and it's taken me less than 10 minutes right here to break it down. So on the bonds, it gets sick, really sick. So what happens with a bond, let's say the receipt to LISD, and I'm not picking on LISD, they're one of many, but just use LISD. So LISD gets $1 million in receipts of the tax revenue, okay? They then take that $1 million and they lever it up 20 to 1.
stop right there. Go into that. That's the part I'm curious about. When you say lever, what does that mean?
They put a mortgage on it.
At 20 times the amount?
20 is a normal amount on a bond.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's no different than your mortgage. What do you do in your mortgage? You got a 30-year AM.
Well, that doubles, but that's not 20 times. Am I misunderstanding it?
No, it's 20 times because they can roll up and they roll out. So there's a cumulative compounding effect going on even on the bonds. But the underlying problem is there's no money to pay for the bonds today. Never mind in the case of LISD, the $1.7 billion that they were just approved by the state to go and raise. In November 2023, they got approval to go raise another $1.7 billion. There's no money to pay the bonds today, but for the fraud that is being committed by the CADs to pay for the, like I said, the past sins of what's happened here. So on a 20-to-1 levered basis, doesn't matter, 15-to-1, pick a number, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There's no money to pay for it.
Obviously. Is that?
No. So the bonds are used by a school district. So let's stay on the school district just for a second.
Sure.
So the bonds are used by a school district. You know they have bonds for roofs, bonds for glass, bonds for driveways, bonds for improvements, bonds for stadiums. So we studied LISD. I studied it in great detail. And to say that it is a spaghetti bowl of everything under the sun with different timelines, different due dates, different interest rates, it's a spaghetti bowl. It would literally take a forensic accountant at least a month to go through that to figure out what that crap really is and what the value is. But here's the point. There is no value. What do you think a stadium is worth if you want to sell a stadium? If you take $100 million and build a stadium, what do you think it's worth the day you're finished? There's no receipts other than the tax receipts from the taxpayers. What do you think a school is worth when the day is finished? Zero. It's a land that's under the school. So there aren't any assets backing this up other than the implicit, as the government has created, guarantee of the taxpayers. And we know that 37% of the households don't have the money to pay anything.
But what I don't understand, Mitch, and maybe you can help me understand, is if you're taxing the public and then you're getting these bonds, why do we need the bonds if you're collecting on our taxes? Is there?
Because they're spending money they don't have. You're right. You're absolutely right. They're spending money they don't have. They're spending money they don't need. And therein lies the problem, and that's the fraud. So watch this one.
You're making me mad. Sorry. Good, go ahead.
The school districts, do you know that they have a budgetary meeting with the CADs? So the chief appraisers of the CADs,
No, I didn't.
yeah, they're handed a predetermined budget. You want to know how fraudulent this is? When a school district, again, let's go back to LISD, walks in to Mr. Spencer's office, or they say, come on, let's go for lunch, let's go for dinner, let's talk about this. They hand him a predetermined budget that says this is the amount of money we need. Don Spencer's not mathematically capable of breaking it down. That's his marching orders. He just simply says, okay, I got my number, I got to go get the number. I defy anybody on this planet to explain to me and give me the proof on how a predetermined budget has anything to do with USPAP. And the answer is it doesn't. And therein is the other layer of fraud. We're up to 4.